For further debate, the member for Waterloo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm going to be sharing my time with the member from London West and the member from Niagara Falls. There's been a lot of interesting comments of what happened at this negotiations table, beginning with the Minister of Education's Academy performance earlier this morning. Yesterday, the Conservative strategist was on CBC Power and Politics, and his name is Corey Teniak, and he warns teachers that the government is ready to legislate them back to work like it has with CUPE education workers, and he goes on to say, and this is a quote, "You can take that to the bank because it's going to happen." That's how this government negotiates, Madam Speaker, not in good faith. And the rhetoric that this Minister of Education and the rhetoric from the Premier himself on the relationship and the negotiations with education workers has been so demoralizing for the very people who are in that sector. And I want to give the other side of the story, because there was an interview yesterday with Laura Walton, who's the president of OSBCU, and this is the other side. She says Laura Walton had insisted just minutes prior to a negotiated deal was still possible before Friday. "In negotiations aren't done," she said. "This is a piece of legislation that was just proposed. It hasn't been passed. It's just a piece of paper that has been received at Queen's Park." Walton also told reporters the union was planning to make concessions on its wage increase demands and present that the counter-offer to the province today. But this is what happened, Madam Speaker. "We are working on it today," and said Walton in a response to a question from Queen's Park. "Today we are going to be moving down, but we're not moving to where they want us to go, which is 5 cents on every hour." That was the 5 cents per hour increase. They're asking for 33 cents per hour increase. I don't know where the government members are getting a 50% increase in the contractual agreements. Get away from your speaking notes. And then she goes on to say, so when asked if the government would refuse to hear the union's new offer, the minister said he wasn't aware. They had an opportunity to present to the government a counter-proposal they may or may not introduce. So the meeting on Sunday was held at the province's request, and according to Walton, the union received the request to meet early in the morning but didn't realize until afternoon that the government wanted to present a new offer. They had trouble pulling everybody together. Walton said the province's negotiators told her side to either take it or leave it. When we got there, this is a direct quote, "When we got there, we were informed that this would be legislated. That is not bargaining. That's an ultimatum." Said Walton. "What they did is give us a piece of legislation that gives us an extra nickel to workers, and then they walked away." The Canadian Civil Liberties, Madam Speaker, has condemned the PC's use of the notwithstanding clause in Bill 28, saying it was never meant to be used as a tool for contract negotiations. These are facts. This misuse and the flagrant disregard for individual rights is wrong and is dangerous to our constitutional democracy. That is true. Soon after Bill 28 was tabled in the legislature, ETFO, in solidarity with CUPE, they walked out as well. So this is all very premeditated, Madam Speaker. This government and this Minister of Education never really wanted a deal with CUPE. And then I want to just tell the members of the government side how demoralizing this is for the people who spend every day with kids. And this is from a Waterloo Region District School Board secondary school teacher, and he says, "In the private sector, if you had a director that utterly destroyed the morale of all their employees, they would be fired, period, because it's bad for business." That's what the Education Minister has done. But the Conservatives give the Education Minister a standing ovation. And just to see the Minister of Labour give a standing ovation on a piece of legislation which tramples worker rights, I've never seen that kind of I don't even have words for it. It's as low as you can go, Madam Speaker. I mean, the role of the Minister of Labour is to uphold the rights of workers and not trample them. This educator goes on to say, well, if the goal this time around is not just to create a crisis in public education like Mr. Harris did, but to dismantle it by targeting the very people that make it work. If the minister's goal is to destroy public education in favour of his beloved private schools, then I guess that's why his colleagues are clapping. That's what educators are coming at us with. History has taught us that all evil starts with small steps. This legislation will be remembered as a major leap towards dismantling a public education system that has served this province so well for so many decades. And when that happens, the clapping will stop, just as it has for so many dictators throughout history. So this is from people who are watching what is happening here in this House. And the lack of transparency is truly upsetting. And I wrote to the Premier yesterday and I asked him, and I said, without transparency, it's impossible to show there's accountability, and without knowing there's accountability, there can be no trust. We need to see the mandate letters from this government, Madam Speaker. When the Privacy Commissioner told you to release the mandate letters, which they have done, you appealed to the Divisional Court. And when the Divisional Court told you to release the mandate letters, you went to the Interior Court of Appeal. And when the Court of Appeal told you the same thing, you appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada, where the case is still pending 4 years after the initial Freedom of Information Act. So the mandate letters will obviously shed some light on what the true motivation of the government is. But actions speak louder than anything, Madam Speaker. And what we have seen from this government is an intentional and mindful undermining of public education. And by this piece of legislation, what a dangerous road we're going down. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.